Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Sunday services at Center for Spiritual Living, Denver. We are a loving and prospering community in the heart of Denver and online. We now conduct hybrid services at the historic Grant Avenue Community Center and Sacred Place, located at 216 South Grant Street, Denver, Colorado. All are welcomed here. A place, space, and face of love. We are a spiritual community practicing universal principles that enrich our lives. We are grateful that you have blessed us with your presence. While online, we'd love to know you're watching with us. Feel free to leave a comment and let everyone appreciate you. With everything going on, life can feel overwhelming. CSL Denver wants you to know we are here for you. Please know that our practitioners are available for personal prayer work. Our licensed spiritual practitioners' names and phone numbers are available on our website at csldenver.org. Or if you have a prayer request, feel free to email it to info@csldenver.org. For your convenience, you'll find clickable links in the description of this broadcast. Rev L. Zia, along with all our guest speakers, practitioners, service coordinators, and musical inspirations, want you to know how truly grateful we are that you are with us today. Thank you for your continued support and participation in our services, workshops, and events, as well as providing financial contributions to our center. If you're interested in upcoming events and information, we send out weekly newsletters. Sign up by visiting www.csldenver.org. We deliver services in a hybrid format where we meet in person at 216 South Grant Street. We will also continue to live stream all services on Facebook and YouTube every Sunday. Find us on our respective channels as well as on New Thought Media Network. Again, thank you for your precious attention. Now prepare for engaging enlightenment.
There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden where God's grace blooms. There is a garden where everything grows, a beautiful garden where love is sown. And in this place of light and love, you can have anything that you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden. That garden is you. And in this place of light and love, you can have anything that you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden. That garden is you. Such a beautiful garden. That garden is you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Alice Nutter, a practitioner here at Center for Spiritual Living, Denver. And I invite you to join me in our opening prayer. So if you want to sit back, close your eyes, and just move into that space. That space that is always there, that divine space, that God space, that most beloved space. And I know that it is the air we breathe. It is in each and every one of us in this room. It is each and every person throughout the universe. Just knowing that it is all God, it is all good. And I am that, as is everyone here and everywhere. And I bless this service that Reverend Delzia will be speaking deeply about self-care, that we have enjoyed the beautiful music by Eddie Watkins Jr., and we'll be listening to Bob Sima and Chris Chickering, and just knowing that the music moves us as well as the words. And all who have made this service possible, all who have made this Center for Spiritual Living Denver possible, we are so truly blessed. We are so blessed by this teaching, by this center, by each who choose to be here every Sunday, whether online or in person. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this teaching. I'm so grateful for every person here. I'm so grateful for so much. And from that place of deep, deep gratitude, I release this into the one mind, the one heart, knowing that it is so, and so it is. Amen. Our reading this morning comes from this month's Science Man magazine. Excuse me. And we have some for sale over here on the table, in case you're interested. It's called Spiritual Practice, The Core Self-Care by Reverend Joanne McFadden. Self-care has become a well-known concept in popular culture, but what does it really mean? A web search brings up 5.5 billion results for the question, what is self-care? Various definitions across disciplines create more confusion than clarity. In its infancy, the self-care movement battled the idea that self-care was selfish. Putting oneself first was just not something that we had been taught to do. As the understanding of self-care progressed, it moved on from that falsehood. However, some people still do not truly understand what self-care is. Typical responses to the questions of what self-care is include, I'm going to the spa next week, or I try to walk a couple of times a week. However, self-care goes far beyond mani-pedis, candlelit bubble baths, and getaways. Self-care speaks to the habitual actions that include but are not limited to the following. Routinely doing what you want to do versus what others think you should do. Not overcommitting yourself. Being discerning about the people you spend your time with. Seeking joyful, fun, pleasurable experiences. Making sure your emotional needs are met. And loving yourself. How to develop a consistent spiritual practice is one of the most frequent questions students ask me. Many times an overly busy schedule crowds out time for spiritual practice. When we have demanding schedules and unrealistic to-do lists, spiritual practice is often the first thing we jettison. What we forget is that when we put that self-care first, all else falls into place just as it needs to. To demonstrate this, I use the walnut and rice exercise with my students. I give them an empty baby food jar, a walnut, and a little bag of rice. I ask them to pour the rice into the jar and then put the walnut in. Invariably, the walnut doesn't fit. Then I have them pour out the rice and put the walnut in first and then pour in the rice again. Voila, everything fits. The walnut, of course, represents self-care, i.e. connecting with spirit, and the rice is all the little things that go on our to-do lists. If we do those first, there's no room for self-care. But when we take time to connect to when we take time to connect to source, to keep that link between ourselves and that divine self at the core of our being, strong and vibrant, what needs to be done gets done. If you struggle to find consistent time for spiritual practice, start with micro practices. The key to living the life you want is taking care of yourself first. Your sacred, indivisible connection to the one. Try it and watch your life flourish. And she had an affirmative prayer for consistent spiritual practice in the magazine. And so I typed it up, and I have copies of it that you're welcome to over on the table after service. And our quote by Dr. Ernest Holmes from This Thing Called You: your endeavor then is not so much to find God as it is to realize its presence and to understand that this presence is always with you. And now let's have some music from Bob Sima. He's got a new song called I Don't Know, and That's All Right.
Greetings, CSL Denver, coming in live, sort of, with you. We've been sending in videos because I had just had a surgery a couple weeks ago, and I'm recovering, and I'm feeling good enough to maybe belt out a song for you. A brand new song. That's why Shannon's not here singing with me. She doesn't know this song yet. So fresh off the press, hot off the press, as they say. It's definitely about self-care and taking care of yourself and not worrying. The title of this is I Don't Know, and That's All Right. And so this came through the leading up to my surgery, just the health challenge I was dealing with, and getting close to being on the other side of it now. And you know, in those moments you get those feelings of like, you know, these worst case scenarios come up, and all these, you know, these thoughts that can flood your mind because you don't know and what's going on necessarily. And anyway, this song is going to be on my 10th album. With that to say, there's 9 other albums. There's a link here. You can go to that website. You can download any song you want. Albums, you can order a flash drive, or you can order a CD. I just wanted to say that because I'd love for you guys to have this music, have it in your lives, playing in your homes, your kids listening to it, your grandparents, whoever. I have been fortunate enough to win 5 Posse Awards for some of these songs, been nominated for 15, I think. So the songs have some traction really in the New Thought world. I think they would mean a lot to you, and it would mean a lot to us, I know, for you guys to have them. But anyway, this is a new song, and it's called I Don't Know, and That's All Right. Can you find your way in the dark? Can you close your eyes and follow your heart? And on the roads where you can't see around the bend, can you go within, be your own best friend? Can you live in the mystery and just let go? Can you enter this moment, embracing what you don't yet know, and say, yeah, I don't know, and that's alright. Things will reveal themselves to me in time, but for now I'm living in a place that feels so nice, but I don't know, that's alright. When you were wondering when you're wondering will end, can you hold that thought, sit back and just pretend that everything is arranging itself for your highest good. Until your patient mind, this will all be understood. Can you live in mystery? Can you just let go? And can you enter this moment, embracing what you don't yet know? And say, I don't know, and that's alright. Things will reveal themselves to me in time. But for now I'm living in a place that feels so nice, where I don't know, that's alright. Not needing to know is a superpower, it's a state of mind. Sinking into a trust that can only come from deep inside. Not knowing is a knowing that there's a grand design. I don't know, and that's alright. Y'all can sing it with me. I don't know, and that's alright. I don't know, and that's alright.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Bob. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to CSL Denver, a place, a space, and a face of love, a spiritual community teaching ancient wisdom and utilizing principles to enhance our lives and the lives of others. I'm so glad you're here today on this Father's Day. So we want to wish a happy Father's Day to all the fathers, all the surrogate fathers, all the mothers and aunts and sisters who's acting as fathers. Just basically want to thank anyone that's holding that father principle down, as they say, being an example of what that looks like and how that expresses itself. And so most people, I know for myself, I can't speak for everybody else, but I'll make an assumption that probably the most prevalent idea about fatherhood is discipline, right? This whole thing of you just wait till your father gets home, right? I don't know if any of y'all ever heard that. When I heard it because I was only in the house with my father, so I had no other choice but to wait till my father comes home. But that statement about this whole disciplinary action of God, Father, or the father in the house, is what a lot of us grew up with, and it's still being taught today. But there's more to the father than that. There's this aspect of love, this aspect of joy and compassion, and yes, the discipline is there. But what would life be without a fullness, a wholeness? And so today, as we look at this whole theme of the month of self-care, and the topic for today, the foundation of wholeness, or the foundation to wholeness, we want to look at this whole aspect of life of self-care. Because I'm sure one of you, maybe two of you, if not all of you, have heard the phrase that says, if you can't be good to yourself, how can you be good to somebody else? Or some variation. If you don't take care of yourself, can't take care. I mean, we can supplant a couple of different phrases in there but they all come out the same. That this idea of self-care is paramount. Without it, really nothing happens. Nothing happens. And so when we understand that at the center of our being, there is this spark, there's this divine spark that's always there, that's always connected. You know, now we have this broader understanding of quantum physics. Now, a few years ago, probably most of us hadn't even heard of the term quantum physics. But now we're intimately involved with it and we understand it, and at least at a level where we can talk about this idea that there is a oneness in the universe, a whole thing that allowed itself to expand and incorporate in everything. So in each of us, there is that divine spark that is connected to the whole, that never ever gets separated. There's the famous experiment where, you know, sometimes these scientists get very creative, and I guess this is their form of self-care, right? Using their imagination. But they did this experiment where they took this idea of oneness and wholeness and connection, and they took 2 photons of light. Now, don't ask me what photons of light are. I cannot tell you because they're very hard to see, but they can see them. They got these colliders and these big things to look at tight, powerful energy. But they took these 2 photons of light and they separated them some ungodly amount in terms of light, and they used a real scientific term. They said, we tickled one of the photons. Now, I'm not sure what that means scientifically, but that's how they describe it. They say we tickled one photon of light, and the other photon of light reacted immediately, beyond what we now think of time and space. Like, depending on where you are and how this signal is getting out of this building, there may be a little delay because of light speed and how things travel. But when they did this at the quantum level, it was as if there was no time and space. It was instantaneously. And then they came up with this idea, these guys must be brilliant, that once 2 photons of light are correlated or connected or made a connection, they will never, ever be separated, no matter where they are in the universe. Now, when we think about that light, that energy, all the different ways we describe God or the Father, not leaving the Mother out, but the day we just don't focus on that Father energy, we are never separated from this disciplinarian, this loving, this fun, this take me hiking, this take me fishing. And boy, I could give you some stories about fishing because I just took my grandkids fishing. I'm not even going to tell y'all how much I paid for them 3 fish I got in the refrigerator right now. But that discipline to say, okay, you know, you got to cast. You can't get too close to the edge. But at the same time, we see fish jumping everywhere. So there's some excitement, there's some fun, there's joy. And this all gets together to create this wholeness of life. This spiritual aspect, this divine core that is never separated, always whole, and most importantly, it knows how to take care of itself. It doesn't have self-care issues. Because how many of you would just flat out all during the day and got home and said, I'm going to watch some TV or read this book, with your body said, you're going to sleep. Now, you could act like you're going to watch TV and you can get your book and all that, but that self-care part of us, that divine aspect of us says, okay, you can plan it, but I'm in the driver's seat today, right now. And so that's what we have to begin to look at every day in our life. We have to look at how are we going to take care of ourselves. Now, we've probably heard it once or twice before, but we are multi-dimensional beings. Now, there's many ways of breaking that down. Sometimes they break it down to 3. Sometimes they make it 4. Sometimes they make it 12. Sometimes they make it 9. It just depends on, Alan Watts says, as long as we can keep finding a sharper and sharper knife, we will get smaller and smaller parts. So it just depends on, the tool you're cutting with when you want to look at the multiplicity of who we are. But if we take the 4 cornerstones, we're physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Now, the first 3, the physical, the mental, and the emotional, they kind of get caught up in the winds and waves of life. From the moment we are born, we begin being blown this way, that way, and floating this way and that way, as we begin to get a hold of this new environment that we live in. And self-care is mainly dependent on somebody else, right? The only thing we can do when we need self-care is cry or throw something. And we have to hope that the person that's listening can interpret, a cry from I just need my clothes changed as opposed to I need to be fed. But all that's a part of self-care. But as we continue to grow in consciousness and in physical presence, we begin to understand, well, I asked somebody for food and they didn't get it, and so I'm going to go in the refrigerator, or I'm going to go to the store, whatever that might be. So self-care begins to be led by that spiritual spark that's in us. Because we know that the physical, mental, and emotional can be sidetracked. It can be deviated. I mean, if you had a father that was a very, very disciplined, very stern disciplinarian, I guarantee you, most of you, even to this day, have that disciplinarian in your mind that runs on automatic. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good. Because I know for me, although my father was not a real strict disciplinarian, because I was an only child, it kind of imposed itself on me that I had to do a whole lot of stuff, the indoor stuff and the outdoor stuff. I had to wash the dishes and cut the grass, right? And so he gave me this idea of a disciplinarian in the sense, these things have to be done. Not because they may be joyful or they may be hard, but they have to be done because for you to maintain a balance of life, to take care of yourself, to look at life in its fullness, sometimes I have to come home and fuss at you because you didn't do the dishes, right? Or sometimes you can't go outside and play because I asked you to cut the grass and you didn't cut the grass. And so this idea of looking at life at a whole frame is what we need on Father's Day. I would submit that because it's a different kind of ball game we're playing, if you will, as fathers now, but the same challenges that has always been there for fathers to embrace. First we were taught you can't show emotions as men. You can't cry, you can't hug, you can't use the word love, because that's going to undercut your discipline action, right? Because that's mainly what we saw, and that's mainly an idea, even to this day, that people have of God. That God is this big judge in the sky, waiting to drop the gavel and say guilty. But God is the person that, or the personality that created the wind for you to fly your kites. God is that same personality that said, yeah, I know we were supposed to have some mashed potatoes, but let's go get a pie. Let's go get a pie. That's what we need for self-care right now. We need to eat something that's joyous, right? And so when we begin to do that, we can begin to deal with this self-care thing easily. Now, I have this slide from Ernest Holmes in this thing called You. As we look at this whole idea of the foundation of wholeness. So this next slide in the deck says this: there is a universal wholeness seeking expression through everything. The spiritual aspect of ourselves, which we sometimes simply call life. Life is infinite energy coupled with the limitless creative imagination. It is the invisible essence and substance of every visible form. Its nature is goodness, truth, wisdom, and beauty, as well as energy and imagination. This thing called you by Ernest Holmes. So when we can begin to look at life in this wholeness of, as they sometimes, there was a song, life is a many splendored thing, like a diamond. There's just so many lights fracturing, that when we can look at life in that way, we get this. The spiritual aspect of who we are is the foundation upon which we create and assemble our lives or our wholeness. It is the bedrock that keeps us from destruction. If we only turn to it and listen. How many of us turn to it and listen? Sometimes I do, I'm gonna be honest. Each time we can tune into that voice of guidance and love, however, and reason, we begin to be more and more whole. We begin to take on this self-care aspect, this foundational piece of who we are, and we begin to operate in unity. We begin to operate in this place where the physical, mental, emotional are held and swayed by the spirit, because we know that that is that divine spark, that quantum light that is always connected to God. We just have to tap in, tune in, and turn on. That's our job. And when we can do that, everything is good. But now the ultimate question is, how do we do that? How do we do that? And this is it. You have to let go and let love. Now, we've heard the term let go and let God. But I'm going to give you a new phrase today. Let go and let love. That aspect that is ever present. It is first cause. And in our language, we understand what first cause is. It is that thing that put everything into motion. Love is the first cause, that this infinite thing that is not finite. So it is ever changing, ever unfolding, ever presenting new ways, new opportunities for us to take care. Take care of what? Ourselves, the universe, our relationships. And the primary one is between you and that divine spark of God. That will allow us to move beyond any barriers, to know when to say no, and to know when to say yes. I mean, every time I get to a thing where I have to say no, I have this remembrance of this song by Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. And Kenny says, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away, and you got to know when to run. He said there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. You don't need to do any of that while you're dealing with the game. Are you dealing with life? Are you trying to get your wholeness back? Focus on that in love. And when you let go and let love, we've heard that another way of, you have to surrender. Yes, you have to surrender. And that's hard, right? That's the hard. And so we look at that next slide. This is by Marianne Williamson. She says, it takes courage to endure the pain of self-discovery rather than choose to take the dull pain of unconsciousness that would last the rest of our lives. We have to, well, I take that back. I don't want to be dogmatic. You don't have to do it. I mean, you got free will. But I would submit that if you don't, it will be just dull for the rest of your life. And you'll look at other people and you'll be mad because they found the secret. They've said, I'm tapping into love. They have their moments. But that's just it. It's a moment. We are a conduit of the divine. And just as God is made of many things, we too are made of many things, and we display many things, and we experience many things. And so, this whole idea about perfection, I wish I could go back in time, maybe get me a DeLorean and go back to the future as they did in that movie. But this whole idea of things being perfect, life is perfect just the way it is. I'm speechless. That it's because life is perfect just the way it is. We don't need to try to make it perfect. We don't need to have the ideal situation or any of that. The blemishes, the ups, the downs, all of it is perfect. The challenge becomes, how do we embrace it? How do we look at it? How many times have you had a stumbling or falling out or falling down, and you look back on it and you say, "Ooh, boy, I'm glad that happened." And I'm glad it happened when it happened. Had it happened a day before or a day after, I probably may not have paid attention and been in a worse situation than I thought I was in. That's self-care. It's to understand that in this wholeness of life, we have to take care of every piece of what God gives us, every piece of it. And so when we can do that by surrender, there's the book by Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love. If you haven't read that book, I would suggest that you go grab it. It's a great summer read to fall in love with yourself again, to look at relationships again, what it means to surrender again, and a way to put yourself on the launching pad into a glorious life, whatever that looks like, whatever you want it to be. Because quiet as it's kept, now, if y'all know different, y'all let me know. This is the only life we got on this plane. Now, I'm not going to get too ethereal this morning. There's a whole lot of other stuff that's talked about, but I'm talking about right here, right now, on Father's Day. This is the only life we have. We can't go back and do it over. For a long time, I worked in Houston. I traveled from here to Houston. I'm not going to tell you how insane that was. But I gained a lot, but I lost a lot. I gained a lot. And self-care sometimes took a back seat because I had this idea of what a father was supposed to be, what a father was supposed to do. And sometimes we have to surrender to love. We have to let it go. So the question becomes this: are you seeking wholeness in your relationships? Are you seeking wholeness in your body, in your soul, by taking on this idea of self-care? Because remember, at the foundation of who we are is this oneness with God that is always present, that is always able to allow us to move. Jesus said this on this next slide. Jesus said to remove every obstacle from your pathway of wholeness, give, and to you will be given. Love, and to you will be loved. Enter into peace, and you will become peaceful. Find the joy that I have found, and you will be joyful. Arrive at the faith that I have arrived at, and you will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Jesus got into all kind of commotions. We'll just leave it at that. But he had faith. He understood the oneness within. And he let it go. He let it blossom just the way it needed to. Just the way God planned it. There's a song, just the way God planned it. Things are happening just the way God planned. Now, some people might think fatalistic and all that. Well, we're not going to go there. It's not fatalistic. It's not living some life of predestination in the way people think about it. So this Father's Day, let's begin to seek new experiences with ourselves, not with somebody else. First, seek ye the kingdom of heaven. And it's been said that's inside. So we need to seek a relationship with ourselves. Begin to be playful. Have fun. Run in, get the water hose and run in the water sprinkler. Eat ice cream on a cone and let the ice cream just run all down your arm. And then I'm not going to tell you what to do with it when it runs down your arm. I'll let you use your imagination. But there's a lot of things that could be done that are still fun, right? And not disciplinarian. So when we can do these things, when we can look at life in this way, we open up to a whole new way of living. Where self-care, as Joanne said, who was a ministerial cohort of mine, we graduated the same year. It's not about a manicure or a pedicure. I can't say the right word, the mani-pedi, or I always mess it up. So I'll say the whole thing. It's not about the hot bubble bath. It's about knowing yourself, developing that relationship between you and God so that you know when it's time to go to sleep. Nobody has to tell you. When it's time to eat, nobody has to tell you. There's that foundational truth that's inside that is always seeking to take care of us, to be that conduit that's there. And so when we can tap into that, life is good, no matter what it looks like. And so, as always, we have these, call to actions. We can't end a talk without a call to action because, other than that, we're just talking. And we're trying to live life. We're trying to be whole. We're trying to have self-care. So the first thing is, where are you congested in your life emotionally? Especially for the men. But for everybody. I know I can be very unconscious about my emotions just for the way I'm by myself, very independent. From the age of 6, it was me. As they say, if it's going to be, it's up to me, right? There was nobody else to call on. There was nobody else. They were there, but ultimately it was me. And that caused some backed up emotions that I'm still dealing with today. But as I continue to seek wholeness, consciousness expands. The second thing is, what steps can you take this week to integrate all parts of yourself to wholeness? What can you do physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually to create more visibly that oneness, more viscerally that oneness? Because that's who we are. We can't separate them. And we know life is a balance. So, I may be more physical today and more spiritual tomorrow and so forth and so on. But it's that movement of these things that gets life rolling, that keeps us alive. And so let's do that. Let's just take, if you can't take both of those, take one of those. And call to action this week so that we can move forward. And so last we have this affirmation. I take time to nourish my whole self and make it a priority in my life. That's the affirmation, to sink all that in. Sink all that in. Because Zig Ziglar said this as we close. Your altitude is not determined by your aptitude. It's determined by your attitude. Your aptitude, your attitude, not your aptitude, is determined by it creates your altitude, how high you can fly. So remember, self-care is non-negotiable. Show up every day for yourself, because the foundation of self-care is letting go and letting love. Let us pray. Heavenly Father God, the other half of that dual aspect of life called mother, father, yin and yang, up and down. Whatever term you use to describe what appears to be this separation of life, that is really the wholeness of life, we call upon that today, right here, right now, to awaken us, to enliven us, to strengthen us. Knowing that I come forth as that. You come forth as that. We come forth as that entity, that light, that love, that self-care that created the universe, that created the intricate connections of every system in our body. And as we allow ourselves to lean into that understanding, to hold true to the faith that there is no place where God is not, there is nothing that God can't do. And by fact that we are always connected, we have the same right. We have the same aspiration, the same aptitude, the same attitude, the same altitude as we fly high in life. And so I say right here, right now, let's begin to take that big walnut and put it in the jar first, that walnut of self-care. And then everything else will fall in line. Everything else will find its place. And we will come forth stronger, better, more loving, more joyous, more playful than we've ever been before. And so I give thanks for this idea, for this opportunity, for us to re-examine our lives in a different way, where we come first, not from a selfish standpoint, but from a standpoint that God has put something uniquely in me that I need to express. And if I don't take care of it, it may be another 1,000 years before it comes on the planet. So it is in that truth that I give thanks. And with that, I just release this prayer into a law that is already at work. It's already moving, transforming, bringing people into our lives, taking people out of our lives so that we can be all that we were created to be. And so I give thanks, I release, I let go, and I know that this is absolutely so. And so it is, amen. And so it is, amen. And so as we continue with this Father's Day, let us think about this idea of giving. Now's that time of offering where we want to first and foremost thank you for your gifts during this retransformation of the Centers for Spiritual Living Denver, where we begin to wake up to everything that's possible, everything that's new, everything that's whole. And so if you just look across the bottom of your screen, there's so many different ways that we can give, through text or through going to the online, pushing the donation, or sending a money order to the P.O. box. But however you give, we thank you. We thank you. And so as customary, if you would take that tithe or just place your hand on your heart to anchor in this offering and repeat our affirmation. This perfect gift is spirit informed, circulating and blessing all that it touches. Freely I give and joyously I receive, and so it is, amen. And so it is, amen.
Okay, we just have a couple of announcements. As we usually mention, if you would like to hear some good news of the world, to affirm the good in the world, we have a link on our Facebook page called And Now the Good News. This program is put together by New Thought Media Network and airs on Fridays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, or you can watch these anytime during the week. Just go to the Center for Spiritual Living Denver Facebook page and click on any post that says, And Now the Good News. New Thought Media Network has over 40 hours of weekly broadcast programs, including prayer time at 8:15 a.m. and p.m. every day, Wisdom of the Mystics, and Finding the Joy in the Journey, along with New Thought Radio, to name just a few. They have also recently added a prayer time in Spanish, as well as 40 Days to Love in both Spanish and English. We invite you to go to www.ntmedia.org and check out what they have. There's something for everyone. We have some older Science of Mind copies of the magazine for free on the table next to the fellowship. We're over here. And we also have June and July magazines, and those are for sale for $4. So help yourself. And let's see. So that's it. Reverend Elzia had to run out because he's got to take his grandkids back to the airport to send them back to Florida. So anyway, join me as we close out with Chris Chickering, a prayer for who we really are. Thank you. And we've got fellowship after.
This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. We are light, we are sunshine, we are what we believe. We are hope, we are promise of everything that's yet to be. We are bliss, we are laughter, we are flowers in the spring. We are life, ever flowing, and these are the words that we will sing. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. We are strong, we are fearless, we find the comfort in our souls. We are real, we are open to the destiny that's ours to hold. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. We are here, we are present in every moment that we breathe. We are peace, we are freedom, and this is a song for you and me. Yeah, this is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. Who we really are. Who we really are.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.